Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. Might just take a few more seconds for the participants to join. It's just a technical thing that takes a few moments. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar titled Partnerships and Innovations for Land and Climate Resilience. Quite a mouthful. My name is Miriam Kugelen, and I lead Aga Khan University's Office of Environment and Sustainability. And I really look forward to guiding us through today's webinar with a really exciting lineup of speakers, topics, and a lot of learning. The Aga Khan University's environment, climate, and sustainability work is actually quite diverse. From our net zero emissions goal to green buildings, from climate education to ideation, from practice changes to supplier engagement. These are just some of the facets of the work of this university, and of course with our partners. In fact, environment and climate is one of the 7 themes of our 5-year strategic plan, emphasizing the cross-cutting and transformative nature of this work. This webinar today is just one of the ways we're celebrating World Environment Day, which is commemorated each year on the 5th of June. Colleagues, students, and partners today are establishing microforests on 4 AKU campuses across 3 countries. Stalls with organic vegetables and indoor plants have been sold out within just a few hours. Student projects on climate innovation are displayed. And our university community today at large is celebrating for the environment in so many different ways. This year's World Environment Day theme is called Land Restoration, Desertification, and Drought Resilience. Quite a daunting topic. Fortunately, the United Nations Environment Programme has added a tagline, which is our land, our future, and really encourages us to be #GenerationRestoration. Hence, it's really wonderful to see so many participants here today with us to engage in some wonderfully encouraging experiences towards restoration and resilience. The discussion topics we chose for today will really highlight the importance of partnerships, because effective collaboration amongst diverse stakeholders is so crucial for tackling the wicked challenges that climate change and land degradation are. We'll hear about effective partnerships that show that pooling resources, knowledge, and expertise achieves greater outcomes than working alone. Innovation is also key to our webinar, so our speakers will showcase exciting innovations, new approaches, and technological advances, and discuss their real-world impacts. Therefore, I'm particularly pleased for our opening remarks to be from someone who's really driven transformation processes throughout his career in health systems, academic innovation, and institutional growth and partnerships. Dr. Karl Ammerhein is AKU's Provost and Vice President Academic since 2017. A geographer by training, he has had an illustrious career in academia, including as Provost of the University of Alberta, as well as Deputy Minister of Health for the Government of Alberta, amongst other key leadership roles. Over to you, Dr. Ammerhein, for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Miriam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So, good day, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, Karabuni, Hamjambo. I bring you greetings from Northern Canada. Welcome to our webinar as part of AKU's contribution to World Environment Day. It's my honor to open this event, which brings together a diverse array of experts, policymakers, innovators, and advocates from within the Aga Khan University, the Aga Khan Development Network, and our partners from across Africa and Asia. We are united today by a shared commitment to environmental sustainability and resilience. As we gather today, we do so with the awareness that our planet is at a critical juncture. Climate change, land degradation, biodiversity losses are challenges that transcend national borders and require a global response. It is fitting that on World Environment Day, we focus on the themes of partnership and innovation for this is through these avenues that we hope to make substantial progress. My travels take me to many parts of the world, from the south to the north, from the east to the west. Evidence is overwhelming everywhere I go that the impacts of climate change are seen everywhere in the world. No part of the globe is immune. Runaway forest fires in the high latitudes, both north and south, evacuation of cities in the last several months in my own neighborhood, floods, droughts, unexpected extreme temperatures in the lands of AKU. These all now are part of our daily requirements to cope and manage while we deliver our programs in healthcare. At the Aga Khan University, we recognize the imperative of fostering collaboration across disciplines, sectors, and geographies. Our commitment to environmental sustainability is deeply embedded in transforming everything we do. As Miriam mentioned, as a university, we have established a fully fledged Office of Environment, which coordinates our many efforts. We have established a Climate Research Center in Tanzania, and we are working for more such living labs to join the infrastructure of AKU soon. We are researching the interactions between climate and maternal health, mental health, and nutrition, amongst other aspects of the human condition. We are educating, advising, advocating, and sharing our learnings, which are often unique from our LMIC perspective, and we stand by to intervene in the presence of crises, like the recent floods in Pakistan. At AKU, we draw inspiration from our chancellor and founder of AKU, His Highness the Aga Khan. It is his vision of responsible stewardship of the environment, ensuring that the earth can sustainably support future generations in the context of civil society. His belief that through partnerships we can share our experience with others, create awareness, increase impact, influence policy, and affect social transformation. And as we enter our 41st year of existence as a relatively young institution, we have a growing body of evidence to support our assertions. Today's webinar is an embodiment of the spirit of collaboration and innovation. We have gathered an impressive panel of speakers who will share their insights and experiences in forging partnerships and developing innovative solutions for land and climate resilience. Their work exemplifies the transformative impact that can be achieved when diverse stakeholders come together for a common purpose. The emphasis here being on diverse stakeholders coming together as partners. As we listen to these presentations, I encourage you to think about how these lessons can be applied in your own contexts, in your own locations. Whether you're a policymaker, researcher, business leader, or advocate, there are opportunities for you to contribute to this global effort. Consider how you can leverage partnerships and innovations to enhance the resilience of your own communities and your own ecosystems. Furthermore, I urge you to think about the role of education in this endeavor. As educators and leaders, we have a responsibility to equip our students and wider society within the knowledge and skills needed to tackle these challenges. By integrating sustainability into our curricula and fostering an environment of interdisciplinary collaboration, we can inspire and empower the next generation to become effective stewards of our planet. In closing, I'd like to express my gratitude to Miriam and her team, and to our esteemed colleagues for sharing their expertise, and to all of you for participating in this most important conversation. Your engagement is a testament to the commitment and collective will that is needed to drive meaningful change. Let us take the insights and inspiration from today's webinar and use them to strengthen our efforts in building a more resilient and sustainable future. Thank you, and I look forward to the conversations upcoming. Good day. Miriam, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Amaran, for setting the scene and contextualizing all that we do. We'll now move to our first of 6 presenters. So dear participants, this is going to be quite fast pace of learning. While we hear from our speakers, we'd also encourage you to use the Q&A function in your Zoom window, where we'll address your questions either in writing, and we've also kept sufficient time towards the end of the webinar to engage with your questions. So first up, we have Dr. Emmanuel Soule to speak about one of AKU's newest initiatives relating to environment and land. Dr. Soule is Assistant Professor and Director of the AKU Arusha Climate and Environment Research Center in Tanzania. He's a well-known scholar on agrarian studies in Africa and a contributor to the Network of Excellence in Land Governance in Africa. He holds a PhD in Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies from the University of the Western Cape in South Africa. Over to you, Soule, to tell us about what a living lab is.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for this introduction. Colleagues, it's a real pleasure to talk to you as we remark this important day of World Environment Day. Next slide, please. As Miriam and Provost Carl Amhan just highlighted, AKU has transformed from a health system university to be a comprehensive university. And one of such approach is to really engage with environment and climate seriously. So as we talk today and as we celebrate the World Environment Day, I want to present to you a living laboratory which was recently established in Arusha with the name Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center. This center has several goals, but 3 of them are so important for today. One of the goals is to designate the site as one of high and exemplary environmental and ecological importance. The reason is that we want to train current teachers, students, and future environmental leaders with practical examples, with a landscape that they can associate with. So the center is driving research and innovation in sustainability and environmentalism, using the site as a living laboratory. And I want to expand what the living laboratory actually means. So as a living laboratory, AKU ASA provides an experiential learning ecosystem based on inclusive co-creation and co-implementation model. When we say co-creation and co-implementation, we aim to have research that is driven by people's needs and priorities in addressing critical environmental and climate challenges. Therefore, we are using the center to integrate research, innovation, and training in a natural setting, natural environment, and context-specific settings. It's really important when you are addressing climate-related issues, environmental degradation, by understanding the context, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, whether it is in Europe, because the solution must emanate from that context for you to address. Next slide, please. As we move on, the center has already practiced for over a year what the living laboratory means to students and to teachers. So our aim with this center is to educate leaders that we want them to have the necessary skills and attitudes and attributes necessary to bring changes and environmental stewardship. We believe that training students from high school, university, and even at PhD level helps us spread the message, help us bring changes in our communities, in our workplaces, including our universities. And we do not just do fancy research. We do applicable research, professional skills that are sorely needed to address global climate and environmental challenges. At AKU, and particularly Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center, we endeavor to do research that is accessible, using accessible language that our communities can benefit, because we are saving all communities regardless of the financial constraints and also the geographic barriers they face. Next slide. So as you can see in the slide that's just going, that is a practical training in the arboretum that we have, where the Maasai elder is training one of our field school students. As a living laboratory, Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center provides exceptional field experience, not only within our landscape of about 4,000 acres, but also meeting and interacting with our local communities in our neighborhoods. Most importantly, the pastoral communities. As you can see in this picture, the Maasai elder is training one of our field school student group from Simon Fraser University in Canada to understand what climate change actually means to pastoral communities. The land that we are sitting at the time of this photograph was completely dry, bare, but immediately when it rains, it becomes lush green, simply because this is a savanna grassland, and wherever there's rain, when the land remains intact, it always naturally recovers. So as we really speak today about our land, our future, training must move from classrooms to field experiences that are life-changing, that are practical experience to students and to communities and to researchers, including professors. So the programs that we offer at AKU Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center is an opportunity to learn and also to apply principles that you can use to create solutions that are lasting and a variety of ecosystems that include not only urban areas, but rural and also students and researchers to learn from landscape of Tanzania, particularly national parks. So already the Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center is hosting not only internships and summer schools, but more importantly, field schools where students spend from 2 weeks to a month, where they not only interact with scientists in our landscape, but also communities outside and also the large national parks in Tanzania. Next slide, please. As we highlighted, partnership is the way to go because climate and environmental challenges are not one person's endeavor to address. We need to unite. So since the beginning, Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center, through the stewardship of Aga Khan University, entered a lot of memorandum of understanding with leading national institutions and universities, including the research center like Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute, which is the sole institute on wildlife research, but also international institutions such as International Livestock Research Institute, and also ICRAF, which is also represented today, but also international universities such as University of Michigan, Simon Fraser University in Canada, and also University of Cologne. The aim of bringing these partners together is to bring the partnership that benefits our landscapes and our communities across the globe by sharing expertise, but also by sharing knowledge, and also study climate change using multidisciplinary towards transdisciplinary approaches that are much more satisfactory than studying climate change and environmental issues in silos. Next. Climate change is important, not only because we already know that our planet is facing twin challenges of climate and biodiversity loss in unprecedented rate, but we are closer to reaching or bypassing the limit of 1% Celsius degrees. That means our world will not only be facing catastrophic consequences to all humanities, as we all know, the impacts of floods, droughts, but we are losing non-human species. Yet, what is more important is that every act of limiting this catastrophic temperature limit counts. As we speak, our temperature is close to 1.2 Celsius, so it's near to 1.5, that's the limit. But the estimate shows that if we do not do efforts to cut our emissions, we will reach 2.5 Celsius degree above pre-industrial level just within this century. So that means planting the trees as one of the ways of cutting emissions is an action that we can do. Next, please. As we can see, Aga Khan University is not only just speaking about what we know and theories, but we are doing by action. So already we have tree nurseries, we have arboretum where people can study trees, but we also share seedlings to our communities so that they can restore our land. And we have simply restored almost every piece of our land here in Arusha. Next. Aga Khan University today has restored over 4,000 land that was degraded before it was acquired. It has not only reforested the land, but it continues to sustainably farm all the pieces that are productive, particularly by teaching communities on regenerative agriculture and healthy produce. Next, please. As we continue with our efforts in Arusha, we need to reflect on why should we emphasize on adapting living lab approach. And here is a quick reflection on it. First of all, a living lab is highly inclusive and decolonial in practice because it involves local communities, researchers, and we are not doing helicopter research. But also the living laboratory enables cross-fertilization of ideas with communities, and it helps us utilize indigenous knowledge and skills. We appreciate what we have learned from every community that we engage, from telling us what are the values of the indigenous trees, which trees are suitable to our landscape and the community's areas. We understand that the living laboratory allows continuous learning by both researchers and community of practitioners, policymakers, and also help us influence policy and decision-making processes at all levels that include local communities, local government, and national governments. Next, please. As I mentioned, many communities around the world are facing a tragic loss of indigenous knowledge because we are not documenting indigenous knowledge, we are not transmitting indigenous knowledge. The example you see here is of the Maasai community in northern Tanzania where Aga Khan land is located, where indigenous knowledge has been used for centuries in designating settlements, grazing lands, and also farming land. That means if we had kept all these approaches, we will have reduced the impacts of floods and also droughts. We at Aga Khan University's Climate and Environmental Research Center take deeply the need for us to integrate both scientific and indigenous knowledge to address immense full challenges that we are facing in climate and environment. And with that, I really thank you for listening to this session. Thank you. Over to you, Miriam.
Thank you, Sule, for sharing the story of this living lab and the association of people to landscapes and all that can be learned. It's really exciting, and I'm quite sure we'll have some questions from the audience for you as well. The next speaker, really relating actually to our experiences and our work directly in Arusha, Tanzania, is Dr. Tor Gunnar Vaughan, the principal scientist and head of the geoscience lab at the World Agroforestry, also known as ICRAF. He has a varied background in soil science, hydrology, landscape ecology, statistical modeling, and remote sensing. Dr. Vaughan leads research initiatives on the development and application of the Land Degradation Surveillance Framework, LDSF, which has been implemented in a range of projects across the global tropics. And we now look forward to hearing about the application and impact of this work. Over to you, Tor.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. And so I'm going to talk about advances in land health assessments at scale to inform land restoration. And I'll also be including a few examples towards the end of my talk of this wonderful collaboration that we've had with Aga Khan University in Arusha. So we can go next, please. So basically, when we started developing the LDSF, the initial thing we sort of looked at was what types of indicators do we need to make this into something that we can operationalize and scale. So on the left on this slide, you see the indicator framework, and we're not going to go through that in detail today, but essentially what it covers are aspects to do with soil health, land degradation status. Carl talked about the importance of land degradation, and that we have a lot of land degradation. So it's specifically designed to assess processes such as soil erosion, for example. But we also look at vegetation cover, including biodiversity, the diversity of trees, shrubs, and in rangelands, the diversity of grasses and forbs, etc. So it's a pretty comprehensive framework with a lot of different indicators. Next slide, please. So why do we need all of these indicators? I mean, one reason is that as we sample, you can go next, please. Yeah, we basically are covering not only agricultural systems with this methodology, we're working across forests, as you see here. This is from Kenya, from Taita Taveta. And here we have an agricultural landscape, or more of a mosaic with some forest and an agricultural landscape. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a drone photo of a rangeland system near Tsavo West in Kenya also. So in other words, we're working across a wide range of different systems, which means that we need a comprehensive set of indicators that we can measure in a robust way. Next slide, please. So there we go. Okay. So another aspect in addition to indicators is the sampling design. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of technical details on this here, but it's very important that we have a robust sampling design. And in the LDSF, we basically use what we call sentinel sites, or LDSF sites, that are 10 by 10 kilometers. So these are landscapes that are quite large, 100 square kilometers, where we spatially stratify the landscape and sample within this. And this is to give us a representative sample for that landscape and avoid bias in the way we assess soil and land health. Next slide, please. So we've developed this as from the ground up. So this is an image just showing in the background here, showing one of our teams on the ground in a rangeland system. As you can see, just looking at this drone image, in this case, we have a lot of bare soil, we have a lot of erosion. You can see some of the guys in the field measuring the grasses, the trees and the shrubs, taking soil samples, measuring infiltration capacity. Next slide, please. And globally, we've now built from these, starting on the ground, plot by plot, basically, we've developed this into a network of sites. There's over 250 sites in about 40 countries across the global tropics. So this ranges from Vietnam, for example, to India, Kenya, Tanzania, West Africa, and also into the Amazon a little bit. Next slide, please. So the importance of this is that, once you have a network like this, we can really start looking at these processes at scale. Another important aspect of the LDSF is that we combine this robust sampling that I just talked about with really simple tools in the field and new technologies and advanced analytics. And I'll touch on some of these things in a minute. If you have time to, you can scan that QR code there. That will take you to the LDSF website, which is currently under construction, where you'll find a bit more details around this. Next slide, please. So basically, if you look at this photo on the left here on this slide, you'll notice that these are fairly simple tools. So literally the only two things that you really need to sort of bring in from outside are the GPS and the clinometer and the auger. So we've tried to keep the LDSF very simple in the way it's implemented in the field. But then we use really advanced technologies such as soil spectroscopy on the right here, and we have a soil spectroscopy lab here in Nairobi, which is one of the most advanced in the world. Where we can do a rapid analysis of these samples and also cut the cost of analysis by about 90% compared to conventional analysis. Next, please. So this is just an example in the next slide here, showing you what these spectra look like. So this is part of the spectral library at ICRAF. And the lines that you see here are basically different soil samples. So you could say that we're taking the fingerprint of each of these soil samples, and then we can use this information to predict many different properties of the soil at the same time. And this is important because it allows us to do much more rapid analysis and much more cost-effective analysis, and hence also then scale the analysis that we're doing. Next slide, please. So here's some examples. I'll just take you through a couple of quick examples around what we do in the mapping, on the mapping side of things. Because we think it's very important to be able to do these assessments in a spatially explicit way. Because if we want to inform land management, if we want to inform land restoration, we have to have maps that are accurate and that are represent different indicators, so that we can kind of unpack what the state of affairs are in the landscape and help target interventions more appropriately. So we build on the use of the LDSF data and then combine it with remote sensing data from a range of different platforms to generate maps. So here on the right is a map from Lesotho showing soil organic carbon in 2020. This is part of a project we have in Lesotho where we annually assess the state of rangelands there. If we go next, please, you'll see a very different system, much more yellow in the carbon map at the bottom here. This is from Niger. Where we're mapping very marginal areas and looking at change over time. In this case, from 2017 to 2021, in one of the farmers' fields that you can see there. So the green polygon that you see on the map is the farmer's field. So it just shows you the level of detail. So we can basically go down to the farm scale and look at these types of changes over time. Next slide, please. And we can also expand this into rangeland systems. Here's an example from the Masai Mara in Kenya. Again, it's the same spatial resolution, and this is soil organic carbon, which we know is a very important indicator of soil health. And you can see this tremendous variation within the landscape here. Next slide, please. And of course, we could scale it even further. So that was Masai Mara looking at one landscape. And in the Great Green Wall, we're using this method now to look at to monitor change over time across all of the Great Green Wall countries. Here's a map. This is a map of soil organic carbon across the Great Green Wall. If you go to the next slide, you'll see a map of soil erosion prevalence again across the Great Green Wall. And if we go to the next slide again, I'm going to zoom into Aga Khan University in Arusha and just give you a couple of highlights from what we've been doing there. So we basically have established through this collaboration that we've established a set of clusters across the two campuses in Arusha. And the idea here is that this of course is to do some baseline assessments of soil and land health within these areas. But also the yellow dots that you see on the maps can serve as permanent plots that one can use in teaching, so that one can sort of go out and measure things and track things over time, and students can do this, etc. So it's a good tool for engagement. If we go next, just a couple of examples of some of the things that some of those types of assessments. On the left here, we have a soil organic carbon map for the two campuses. If you look really carefully on the left one in particular, you can actually see the boundary of the university campus where we have somewhat higher carbon than on the northern edge of it, which is outside and a bit more degraded. And you can see that even more clearly on the right, where we have a map of soil erosion prevalence, the red being areas that have high soil erosion prevalence. So these are really exciting tools that we can use. In addition to that, if we go to the next slide, we also use often combine the LDSF with citizen science data collection, such as, for example, the Regreening Africa app that we developed, or the Regreening app as we call it now, since it's used beyond Africa. And if we go to the next slide, this combined information gives us a set of really powerful tools that allow us to better monitor land restoration, better target interventions, better understand what's working, understand constraints, understand opportunities and potentials. So with that, thank you so much. And back to you, Miriam.
Thank you so much, Tora. That was really fascinating to see the data come to life and drive decision-making on the ground for land restoration, and of course, community benefits in the long term. Thank you. We'll now move to a different part of the world, which is often even more arid. Dr. Asad Ali will share a case study on moringa plantation in rural Sindh in Pakistan. He is the chair of the Department of Community Health Sciences and a professor at the Aga Khan University, and has received funding from institutions like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, NIH, and CDC. His research interests pertain broadly to challenges of poverty, malnutrition, infectious disease, and social development. Unfortunately, he can't be live with us today, but he's been kind enough to record his study on video for us. So for the next 8 minutes, we can listen to Dr. Assad.
What I'll be talking to you about is this other initiative that we did over there, is that large-scale plantation of Moringa oleifera. So many of you probably already know, but moringa is a highly nutritious food. It is kind of considered a super food. It's a tree, and many parts, almost all parts of this tree are edible, rich in proteins, rich in many micronutrients, vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, potassium. And this is in the first world, it is kind of like a superfood supplement, and it is quite expensive in the first world. But this tree is indigenous to our part of the world, but our population really is not fully aware, except in certain cultures. Most people are not very aware of the benefits of this tree. So what we did through a grant by Prince Sadruddin Fund for Environment, what we did is that we planted about more than 40,000 of these trees in Matiari district. And we did an MOU in the spirit of collaboration, which our university always encourages. We did an MOU with the Sindh Agriculture University, Tandojam, to kind of leverage their expertise and basically with so it's kind of some of their agricultural expertise, and we planted about 46,000 trees over there. The vision was that we will plant these trees in a manner which is going to be sustainable, because it's easy to plant trees. What is more difficult is for these trees to sustain over there, because if there is not enough community buy-in, then these trees, you can plant them and very soon they disappear. But if this works, then really Moringa large-scale plantation could have been a win-win. You could kill two birds with one stone, that these are really good for the environment. They'll provide you tree cover, greenery, and all, and they can enhance the nutrition of this highly malnourished population. So what we wanted to do was to plant them, not just plant them, but really do high quality household and community engagement, so that they stick, and this there is a cultural change in the community, that they really start to use this over there. We made some recipe videos, peer session, which I'll tell you about. So in the year one, we planted about close to 34,000 trees. The next year, about 12,500 trees. And this was really done in kind of like in consultation. And basically, this whole thing was co-created with the community, because we were really sensitive that we didn't want to do something which would just disappear, next time any challenge happens. Any climatic challenge happens, or people just don't value it, people don't water it, and once we plant it, the tree just dies off. We did our GPS tracking for these trees, and had our challenges, which were expected: water scarcity, pest control. For water issues, we partnered with the local authorities. For plant health, as we mentioned, we had the Sindh Agriculture University folks as partners. And in order to really, we did community awareness sessions and all, but the buy-in was good, but not that great. But what we did is that we identified that about 5% of the houses in the community were basically such that they were aware of the benefits of moringa and had been using it in their kind of houses before. So we engaged with them, and we hired some of those folks and asked them to kind of join us for our counseling sessions, and to other people, which was really successful, and we really got some very good buy-in about the use of moringa over there. So we called them master users, and these became local champions of this initiative. So they, together with us, kind of conducted awareness and monitored the growth of these plants. So overall, about 10,000 people were counseled on the benefits of these. And what we saw was that, there was significant kind of, buy-in from the community. There was increased tree survival. We also did some video sessions for wider reach of these. So this is kind of like the total number of peer-to-peer community sessions and the total number of people who benefited from these. So we had a good about 10,000 people that we reached out to. We also prepared these videos in that local setting where we showed how to cook moringa, like how to use different parts of moringa in the food, leaves, pods, and all. So these were told during those peer-to-peer sessions as well, but we also made some high quality videos, and we have a whole YouTube video channel of moringa recipes right now in Sindhi language, which is available. We're happy to share those. So after we did that, then, as you know, in 2020, there were these horrible floods and all those of, so we planted them, but then we were like, okay, we did a very good effort, but were we successful or not? So in about 2023, about 2-3 years after our first plantation, we decided to do an impact assessment study and see were we successful or not in having this as a sustained use in the community or not. So 234 houses that we planted, they were randomly selected, and we went back to them to see what they were doing. We were delighted, and I personally was very surprised that 50% of this cohort that we planted, they were still using moringa, which is amazing. I mean, if for a cultural change, this is a pretty amazing number. And of those, about 58% were using it as a food, 20% as medicine, and 20% for their animals. What we saw here was also very encouraging, that of the people who were using it, about 1/4 of them said that they were using it every day, and about another quarter said about weekly, and then another quarter were using it about monthly, and all. So very high use of this, and all family members were using it. Many people were using it as a powder, as a dried leaf powder, which is the conventional use, but many other people were also cooking these leaves, the twigs, the roots, the green pods, and the flowers. So really massive uptake, which was very, very encouraging for us. And people also kind of like, I mean, we were worried that it tastes a little bit bitter, but most people, the way they were cooking it, they said that it has no taste. Some kind of, about 1/3 of them said it was a little bit bitter. So moringa flowers were cooked in curry, spices, tomato, garlic, onions, or yogurts. Leaves, flowers, green pods as salan. Leaves also used as dressing and in tea. Moringa was also mixed with dough to make roti. So this was, the local cultures. People were just, they're just so kind of smart that they, once they knew about the value of this, so they started to use it in their diet in ways which were kind of even more than what we kind of went and told them about. So overall, we are very encouraged that, in this community, with not such a small sample size, we really were able to influence a culture change, which is not an easy thing to do. This is a win-win. This has positive large-scale plantation of moringa, has impact on soil fertility, drought resistance. It is, bees really get attracted to it. So it's wonderful for the environment, and it also is good for the nutrition of the people. So it's a win-win. We think that we had a really successful pilot in here, and the need is now to scale it up. So overall, despite all the floods, despite the COVID pandemic, this initiative really kind of thrived. We have shown that it works. We are getting ready to publish it. We have been sending it to some journals so that it gets published. But overall, this has been a very successful project. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me at asad.ali@aku.edu, and we'll love to follow this up and answer your questions there. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your time and opportunity to speak today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful, thanks. Yeah, and of course, if there's any questions for Dr. Asad that you want to ask here in the Q&A, feel free to type them in, and we can always answer the questions also by responding to every participant by email. Our next speaker is Dr. Asad Mustafa, Professor and Chairman at the Department of Environmental Engineering at the NED University of Engineering and Technology in Karachi, Pakistan. He holds a PhD in Civil and Environmental Engineering from the University of Edinburgh. In 2023, he also completed his ASCE, Environmental and Water Resource Institute, Visiting International Fellowship from the USA. Over to you, Dr. Atta, to share your urban microforest experiences.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Karachi to all the participants. Good evening to all. So I'll be discussing on the urban microforest project that was an initiative that was taken by our university. Next, please. So the background, yes. So back in 2018, our university became the signatory of Delri's declaration. And this is an official statement of a commitment to environmental sustainability for the higher education institutions. And we are one of the first institutions in Pakistan to sign this declaration. And simultaneously, we also had the management of the university also started to take initiative to make the campus carbon neutral and a sustainable and a living lab. So this project was initiated in the year 2018. So amongst the different, please, next. Yes. So you can see in this block the different initiatives that were taken by the university related to climate and energy, technology, intervention, and behavioral changes. So amongst the climate and energy, you can see the last one is the urban forest plantations, because in an urban area, urban setting, land is at premium and land is not available. So planting trees is a big challenge. So then we came up after contemplation and thinking, our team came up with the idea that we can plant urban forests on the campus using the Miyawaki Japanese technique. Next, please. So this is the Miyawaki urban forests, this technique to plant urban forests at the university campus. Next, please. So over the years, we have had plantation drive on the campus, and we did a tree census, a tree counting, and in the year 2019, the campus that is spread over 110 acres that has almost had almost 8,500 plus trees on the main campus. We have also other campuses, so this is the main. We're talking about the main campus, and plantation has been taking place in collaboration with the local partners, with industries. You can see different groups over here: the automobile industry, the petroleum industry, the banks, and then we have a strong network of alumni in the North America, because our institution is almost 100 years old. So all these you can see, and then textile industries as well, and different groups, they all collaborated in the plantation drives. Next, please. So this is exactly almost 5 years ago that the first urban forest was planted on campus. That was on July 12th, 2019. And using this Miyawaki method, 30 trees are planted in 10 meters square of area. So we standard for our campus, we took 30 feet by 10 feet, that is 300 meters square area, and we planted 90 trees in this area. So the concept again for the urban areas is to have a dense cover of vegetation, creating a unique ecosystem in an urban setting. So you can see at the time of plantation, the urban forest was, you can see the juvenile forest, and then you can see the recent picture that is a full-fledged dense forest area in an urban setting. And especially one more thing to point out is Karachi is located in a semi-arid area. Next, please. So these are the trees which we selected. We tried to select local trees, and most of them you can see are fruit trees, so that we can have increase in the biodiversity as well. And we have been carrying out, and we will inshallah, we'll be publishing this. So the biodiversity has also increased significantly. And you can see we have mulberry trees, java plums, almonds, common figs, then guavas, pomegranates, curry leaf, tamarinds, berries, golden shower, and no sugar apple, and different. So these are locally available, and they are set to the weather conditions of Karachi. So these tree species were used. so that they can survive. And we can also have increase in the biodiversity. And most of them you can see are fruit trees. Next, please. So over the years, you can see the timelines. We started modestly in 2019 with planting 2 urban forests. And then progressively, you can see in 2024, we have 17 urban forests altogether planted, some on the campus and 4 are out of the campus. Next, please. So you can see the summary. So far, we have planted 1,644 fruit trees in these urban forests. And with respect to the carbon sequestration, approximately 16 tons of CO2 emissions have been saved in the last 4 years. And obviously, when we're doing forestation, so that also is restores the land. So you can see approximately 530 meters square of land on the campus has been restored, at rich in carbon, and it's highly organic. Next, please. So we also have a technological intervention, and you all can browse to the website. This is co2smart.nedut.edu.pk, and then you can click on the NED-UET Urban Forest tab, and this is we can get the real life carbon mitigation or reduction by these urban forests. So we have basically used an algorithm that is based on a technique that has been developed by the US Department of Agriculture for urban areas, for urban trees. And based on this, you can have live calculations for the carbon sequestration on this website. Next, please. So yes, moving forward, what especially universities, role of universities in developing countries like Pakistan and others as well. So the first and primemost is education, the conventional techniques, plus we are living in a digital age. So we have to promote through the digital platform as well. And then research by universities, permaculture, saline agriculture, because especially in Pakistan and other developed countries, we have a lot of problem with respect to the salinity, especially in our province of Sindh, where Karachi is located. We have the problem of waterlogging and salinity. So saline agriculture is also important. And then we have to research on agroforestry techniques. And then another important aspect is subsurface drainage. That's important to make the land, to restore the degraded lands. And then obviously the social component that is involving and looking at the behavior of the local communities is also an important aspect that should be covered by the university research. And then student participation is also very important. Like all these urban forests at our campus, we tried to, the first urban forest that was planted, again, that was with the assistance of students. The students, they all assisted in preparing the material for the Miyawaki forest, containing coconut husk, rice husk, and different agro biomass, and then planting those trees. So this was student participation is of prime importance, because when these students, they live on the campus for around 4 years or 5 years. So when they graduate from the universities, they have instilled in this the feeling of the environment, and they become responsible citizens saving the environment. And then again, projects are very important, that the teachers and the professors, they give projects related to sustainability and these projects to the students. And then again, campuses have large areas, so they can be they can act as living labs, demonstration projects. This is also important. And then one of the most important parts again is the partnerships. And luckily, we were very lucky to, in all these establishment of urban forest, we had industries involved, international agencies, and the local community also involved in most of the urban forest plantation at the campus. And again, in order to make it sustainable, it's very important, especially in the developing countries, to involve the government agencies as well, so that the projects can go on in the long run and they can be successful. Next, please. So this is all from my side. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atif. It's been really great to hear about your engagement of students, corporate, governments, and many others. Plantation, of course, is really a central activity for land restoration. But when we actually move from planting trees to actually growing them, the requirements for long-term monitoring and support really change. So Dr. Muin Uddin will share with us his experiences of remote monitoring and engagement in northern Pakistan. Dr. Muin is currently the Regional Head of HR, Organizational Development and Sustainability for Serena Hotels in the South and Central Asia region. He holds a PhD in Strategy, Program and Project Management from Schema Business School in France. Over to you, Muin.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for the invite. This is not our project location. This is just a AI generated image. So, though we have a separate tracking platform that I wanted to share, and thank you, Miriam, for your kind invite. Next slide, please. When we see that normally these plantation activities, especially mass plantation activities, either at state level or in private sector, it's very difficult. Normally, organizations plant and then forget. So the sustainability of the plantation efforts depends upon its monitoring. Normally, if you see people go for plantation activities, especially after a billion tree tsunami campaigns in Pakistan and 10 billion tree tsunami in Pakistan, but there are no platforms that can really track the plantation efforts. There are issues of mortality, there are issues of traceability, sustainability of the plantation efforts, and less attention is given to the co-benefits of the plantation efforts or afforestation efforts. So what we thought at Serena was to go for a nationwide campaign in 2022 and take it from mountain to mangroves. So we set a target of about 600,000 trees, and we partnered with AKRSP and WWF. Next slide, please. What I feel is like project success lies in your partnerships. So for mass plantation programs, for bulk plantation programs to have really an impact, you need to have credible partners who have got the on-ground experience. So we selected WWF for, in general, all areas of Pakistan, including plantation of mangroves, and AKRSP for our specific plantation activities in Gilgit-Baltistan region. And we selected the locations based on the community's willingness. And that was the basis, which actually determined further technicalities like species selection, like the availability of land. Normally, if you go for bigger plantation initiatives, one of the key factors that is very important is to get the land. Communities are generally sensitive about land rights. There are different forms of land concessions. So it's very important that your implementation partners should be well grounded and aware of the local dynamics. Next, please. So if you look at a mass afforestation activities, we completed this target in about 2.5 years. So even if you go for a bulk plantation activity, you need to have your own nurseries ready. You need to have your species ready. And we all know, especially plantation in Pakistan is seasonal. So we get only 2 plantation windows. And to have those windows successful, you need to have to do your backward planning of development of your nurseries, your community engagement dialogues, and then the location selection. Normally, the plantation lands are degraded, or the lands which do not have the water or other infrastructure available. So we had learnings of a certain area where the area was degraded or completely barren lands. So in addition to the plantation, we first had to do the solarization project, where we could uplift the water on reverse gravity and then do the plantation. So these are all nuts and bolts. If you go into a bigger plantation drive with sustainability in mind. So this is the back end technicality that needs to be done in a backward planning spectrum. Next slide, please. There are always, especially in the context of Gilgit-Baltistan, the plantation windows are smaller, especially if the autumn plantation is there. The soil quality is degraded as we go closer to equators, or Gilgit-Baltistan is lying in the third pole, having the largest glaciers in and around. So the area is quite hard to go into a bulk plantation exercise. And for the plant species selection again, the menu of the plant selection again further reduces. Like in Punjab, if you have a greater spectrum of starting from tamarix or kikar or mulberry or mangroves or acacia or pine, as you come near to Gilgit-Baltistan, so you are only limited with robinia, with willow, with Russian olive, and a few species of acacia. Next, please. One of the things we did was to develop a complete satellite-based portal. And that portal started from a pre-plantation activity. So the whole area was divided into polygons. And wherever we were planning to do the plantation, so those polygons were first satellite recorded, and those were plotted. Then we had the plantation activity, and then we developed a timeline of satellite tracking with on-ground verification. So it was a two-stage process where we were triangulating the plantation efforts. Number one was we had the tree count of what we planted on the ground. And number two, how the satellite resolution was picking the algorithm of our plantation. It also depended upon species. It also depended upon the land availability. And there were certain locations in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral which even didn't exist on Google. So we had to add on those locations and tell the Google that this is not the mountain, rather there is a plantation patch. So technology has enabled now that you can do remote monitoring, you can do remote sensing, and you can easily go into future directions of either recording it and taking it to a register, or kind of sharing that with your customers if your customers or if your clients want to join the mass plantation efforts. Next, please. This is a snapshot. This is a live portal that's available to public all over. This mentions our plantation targets and our partners and locations. In addition to plantation, we had community initiatives like distribution of seeds, giving them water stoves, cooking stoves, and also solar geysers. You cannot have just in isolation plantation, because first 3 years for plantation is very critical. So to have the success rate, you need to be grounded with the communities. So this website is live. You can visit, and it can give you a snapshot of all the plantation sites, how many number of trees were planted, and you can easily see the polygon of how the tree canopies are coming up. Is their plantation thickening over a quarterly basis, or 6 monthly basis, or yearly basis, or if it is, thinning out? So you can remotely measure, monitor, and also see if there is a natural hazard in the area that's affecting your plantation, or if your plantation is close to any potential hazard area that's there. So this is quite live and is part of our sustainability website. So whosoever just Google Serena Green, it'll take you to this plantation website, which is a real-time tracking of our plantation of all the sites. Next, please. So within AKRSP, if you see, so there are different 3 regions. We gave it to AKRSP as implementing partners, and for WWF, we gave them new plantation at the same time for stewardship of the existing forest, which were supposed to be, taken under stewardship, coming up with value chain opportunities of non-timber related products and community enterprise, linking them with the tourism value chain. So in the community initiative, there are, activities on your fuel efficient stoves, your distribution of seeds and solar users. So this is a real-time platform that tracks, and all the activities carried out on each site are recorded, and it is tracked using the satellite maps. Next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Moin, for also sharing the challenges and learning along the way towards implementation and how some of these were overcome given the local circumstances. So to draw together many of the innovations we've heard about, our final speaker will contextualize and deepen the concept of nature-based solutions, especially in the way that the Arakan Development Network as a whole is applying this across dozens of countries in the Global South. Dr. Mariam Mati supports the Arakan Development Network as the nature-based solutions lead. She has a PhD in natural resources management from the University of Turku in Finland and has worked with the Forestry Stewardship Council and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, amongst others. Over to you, Mariam.
Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
So yes, thank you very much for this opportunity, and happy to hear so many interesting insights from the other partners and colleagues. A lot was mentioned on research, sharing knowledge, partnerships, student involvement, community involvement, monitoring approaches, different projects, etc. I will not repeat myself on the same. So trying to dive into the topic of the nature-based solutions as a climate change mitigation measure, as well as to give a little insight on the AKDN context. Next slide, please. Thanks. So understanding nature-based solutions and exploring the concept and significance on a landscape level and insights to the AKDN context for shared understanding, that's a big sort of topic and discussion. However, we will need to go back to the definitions. Next slide, please. And the next one. Thank you. So talking about the partnerships, one of our key partner international level is IUCN, International Union of Conservation Network. And it very well comes together with what actually AKDN is implementing since decades on the ground, kind of synergizing the nature-based solution concept as a part of traditional approaches. So according to IUCN and UNEP, nature-based solutions are the actions to protect, conserve, restore, sustainably use and manage natural or modified terrestrial, freshwater, coastal, marine ecosystems, which address social, economic, and environmental challenges effectively and adaptively, while simultaneously providing human well-being, ecosystem services, resilience, and biodiversity benefits. And there are different other concepts, what I will not dive into now. However, just to mention, it's not only about finding the solution, it's not only about planting a tree or monitoring its growth. It's the discussion on a wider scope, on a landscape level, and touching simultaneously human well-being and biodiversity, as well as the climate change. Next slide, please. Talking about nature-based solutions, there can be various, right? climate smart forestry, climate smart agriculture, river restoration, wetland restoration, peatland restoration, green cities, among others, and coastal flood protection. We heard today urban planting initiatives, climate smart forestry, and other projects, which are all falling nicely under the same concept. Next slide, please. However, talking about the trees and plants, it's important to remember that they are not just the carbon cleaners, they also help wildlife and communities. And various companies often only focus on carbon and forget about these other important things. So the multifunctionality and nonlinear monitoring approaches are necessary. Climate change isn't that simple, right? It's like a big puzzle with lots of pieces. It's not just about reducing emissions, it's also about how everything in nature is connected and interlinked and affects each other. So therefore, we are having discussion not only on a polygon or site level, but on a landscape level planning. So restoring, saving, managing the environment comes with a lot of uncertainties, of course, and we can't be 100% sure about everything, like whether a protected site will stay safe from natural or man-made disasters, but it's always worth trying to reduce risks and have good plans, just in case something happens, right? So this brings us to the strategic multi-level implementation. Next slide, please. So taking all that sort of theory and then huge efforts on the ground from the network partners, which are placed in various geographies under different climatic conditions, we came up with the on a network level AKD and nature-based solutions repository, or simply a nature platform. This is the hub. Next slide, please. Where we are not only tracking and recording information on the project level, but also it serves as a nature data hub with the various tools from the planning, implementation, and the monitoring and data analytics and insights. So anybody from the network can have one sole standardized data collection approach, so we can report all together, answering the same questions, no matter how different we are or in how different communities or geographies we're working. Next slide, please. Amongst the local partners and the network, and can you please click one more time? Thank you. Yes. We do work also with the global partners, and one of them, Tor, he presented earlier, it's C4CRAF. So on the implementation side, on the monitoring, measurements, data collection, on the specifications or the general methodologies, we do refer to the global best practices, and C4 is one of them. So jointly, we have developed different tools, including the planting registries. And afterwards, we had a set of in-field, in-person workshops. So they kind of calibrate the capacity of all the field staff as well, not just the planning stage managers, but also the any personnel involved. So one of them was already run in India, and the other one is planned in 1 month's time in Gilgit, Pakistan. And Moin is also part of that, by the way. Can you please click one more time? So the main idea was to connect all the planning all the planning stages with the implementation, and then further on the monitoring. So there's one nice logic within the platform. Each step is accompanied with the guidance document, so you can always check around what do you mean by each single term or each single action, which is in place. And can you please, next slide. So the main outputs from the training workshops or meetings is capacity building programs, so that we build the capacity of field teams in data collection consistency and continuous engagement and support in building the AKDN's team's capacity via training. Calibrated field data collection improves consistency in field data collection methods through calibrated efforts within AKDN network. Because sometimes different offices are working within the same country, even within same region, but for some different reasons, we're not knowing that they are doing perhaps or implementing some similar initiatives. For the outcomes, we would like to see the standardized data collection practices, adoption of standardized and calibrated data collection across all registered sites, which are over millions, enhanced data accuracy and reliability of the data collected from the monitoring activities, improved collaboration to strengthen any sort of interactions between AKDN network partners through country-specific meetings, ensuring consistency in data collection practices, and empowered field teams with the skills and knowledge to consistently collect high-quality data. Next slide, please. Thank you. Can you please click one more time? So what are we looking for via the landscape vision? The main outputs are AKDN NBS activity plans. So we are looking for the short and long-term plans outlining specific activities, targets, and strategies for landscape, regional, country-level interventions. Performance targets, establish targets for the AKDN NBS activities, including measurable goals for environmental impact, community engagement, and other relevant metrics. And outcomes, it's a strategic alignment of AKDN NBS activities with broader strategic goals and objectives at landscape, regional, and country levels. Effective collaboration, as I mentioned before, we're looking into the enhanced collaboration with relevant AKDN network agencies and offices and external partners, fostering a coordinated and synergetic approach to niche-based solutions. Adaptive planning is the implementation of the planning framework that allows for adaptability and adjustments based on evolving circumstances and needs. And of course, clear communication of short and long-term strategies, ensuring transparency and understanding among stakeholders. Of course, we are using all the remote sense techniques and technologies and looking into the best sampling and what is the representative sampling for the different bioclimatic zones, etc., etc. But that's basically the little insight on the nature-based solution context within the AKDN network on a landscape level. Thank you very much. And the last slide. The last slide, thank you. Yes, nature does not know man-made boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mariam, for also casting an outlook on what we are expecting to see at the AKDN nature-based solutions level over the next months. Really exciting stuff. So, partnerships and innovations for land and climate resilience. We really gave ourselves quite an ambitious topic and agenda for today, and we heard case studies, applications, and impact from Asia and Africa. For me, these presentations were really insightful, and they really shed light on the complexities of these topics and the topic chosen by UNEP for this year's World Environment Day. There's a few questions that I'd now like to pick up for all of our speakers. So if we can get all our speakers visible, please, on the screen. I'd like to, and this will be a really quick fire kind of interaction. I'm going to ask a question and ask you to answer it in less than 1 minute. So Moin, I'd like to start with you. What factors are critical for scaling initiatives and land restoration initiatives in particular to make them successful for community benefit as well? So the question is around scaling. Moin, do we have you?
Sorry, Mariam, you have to repeat the question.
Yeah.
I didn't get you.
What factors are critical for scaling the land restoration initiatives together with communities?
Community stakeholders, confidence, and dialogues. Yeah, this
Super.
is the
That was
shortest
definitely
answer.
less than a minute. Well done.
Yeah. You need to take the community into confidence. Land is always a very sensitive issue, especially in the mountain areas. If you say, I'm going to plant the trees, they'll ask you why and why exactly you are doing it. So you have to give that confidence that this tree is going to save you against disaster, natural hazards, but definitely there is no strings attached. So I'm doing it for you. So that community stakeholder trust and confidence, I'll rate it number one.
Yeah, thank you. Very important. Next, Sule, to you. How does the living lab concept, and this is a question from our audience, in Tanzania, integrate with ongoing land-related interventions in the country?
Thank you, Miriam. Aga Khan University Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center is really to address agenda also that are of high priority for Tanzania. So land degradation is one of the central part that Arusha Climate and Environmental Research Center as a living laboratory is tackling. And the reason is very simple. The more you restore the land, you are not only restoring the tree species, but you are restoring the animal species, the butterflies, the pollinators, the bees that we always ignore, but it is the bees that keep our world intact. So we are focusing on these priority areas and also using our living lab for communities to come and learn. So every Friday, communities are walking in our demo plots, in our tree nurseries to learn and take the tree species that they want to plant and restore their land. And now with Aga Khan, with our Aga Khan Foundation, we have just launched a new project we call Integrated Fodder Project, which will provide seedlings for banana grass that communities can use in areas that are degraded, and the banana grass are not only resilient, but are very nutritious for livestock, given that our communities in neighborhoods are pastoralists. Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, Sule. Mariam, I have a question for you next. What's the potential, but maybe also the limitations of data networks to actually accelerate interventions on the ground?
Yes, that's a very good question. Well, basically the human resources and various geographies, etc., because everyone have the best practices from place, the traditional knowledge, etc., and to put it all under one framework, that's quite challenging. Otherwise, I don't see any big obstacles. The most important is to bring everyone to the same table, let's say, for the discussion. And therefore, we're having these in-person meetings and trainings for the field staff and for the managers at the planning stage. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Tor, for you, another question from the audience. Are there any policy frameworks that you believe should be adopted more widely to support some of the land restoration efforts?
Ooh, that's a big question. And so basically, I would say that for us, it's really important that we bring evidence into the policy making processes. So I would say one of the main challenges at the moment in terms of policy is that very often they're made without sort of considering evidence and data. So our focus has been a lot around sort of developing or scaling these assessments and these networks on the ground, and what we do with our modeling to allow us to inform policymakers, to inform decision making, because I think that's a major bottleneck at the moment.
Great, thank you. Dr. Atif, are you with us? I'm not sure I can see you. Maybe not. If you're here, do let us know, please, then I'll ask you a question also from the audience. Meanwhile, for Dr. Carla Provost, from one of the audience questions as well, the comment is as follows. By integrating environmental education into curricula, we can create informed, proactive, and united communities ready to combat climate change. So as an academic and university leader, what's your takeaway in terms of the skill sets that might be needed to accelerate land restoration and overall climate resilience?
I think the The challenge for an academy like AKU, which historically defers to deans and department chairs on the evolution of curriculum, is to take the matter of environment, climate change, and sustainability and elevate it to a university level priority. If we proceed as we do in the past and assume that the deans and the chairs will bring forward relevant curriculum changes, then we'll have a little bit in medicine, a little bit in education, a little bit in arts and science, a little bit in communications, but we will forego the opportunity to create a common platform across all academic entities that sees the issues related to the topics of today's discussions not as nice to have, but as a core requirement that underlies everything we do. AKU is small compared to some of the schools that we've heard reference, and we've had unanimous buy-in from the deans and the department chairs. So far, it has been, as the saying goes, pushing on open doors. There has been broad receptivity once we got our heads around the issues, and Miriam, your team has done a lot to create that shared understanding. I can imagine in universities with 50, 60, 70,000 students and 100 academic units, getting shared comprehensive buy-in on anything is probably nearly impossible. So in this case, a smaller school might well have an advantage over a very, very large school, even if we can't lay claim to the resources that you would find in a very large school. The strategy we've been adopting at AKU, and I think I'm just about out of my minute, is to partner with like-minded institutions. And Soli has taken us to a group of universities in Germany. We have our partners at the Canadian level. So I think a small school can leverage resources by bringing partners into the conversation and offering them access to the rather unique facilities that we have access to, like Soli's Acer lands in Arusha. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. I know there's a few more questions on the chat. What we can do is just gather the answers from the other speakers, such as Dr. Asad and Dr. Atif, who are not with us anymore or not online, and email them to all participants. I think there's one around microforests as well, which I mentioned earlier, you know, in celebration of World Environment Day today. We're establishing on all our campuses. So I think there's collective experience in the room, which we'd all be happy to share later as well. Now, just to complete us off, I have a really quick question for all of us, which you please answer in about 10 seconds, which is that, of course, the hashtag for World Environment Day this year is Generation Restoration. So I'm going to ask you each in turn. Generation restoration to me means, then you please conclude. So I'm going to start again with you, Moeen. Generation restoration to you means?
Stewardship.
Thank you. Tor.
Yeah. Actionable evidence.
Thank you. Sule.
Forests.
Great. Carl.
Community engagement.
Mariam.
Responsibility.
Thank you. Well, I think those are really wonderful take-home messages for all of us. Thank you to all the participants who were able to join us today. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you to everyone at the Al Khan University, including our IT, who made this happen. I think we can really go away now as part of Generation Restoration and take these messages and learnings forward. Thank you so much. Happy World Environment Day to you all.
Thank you very much, Mariam.
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Bye-bye.
You.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.